Welcome back. The St. Lucia Civil Service Association, CSA, has successfully concluded negotiations with WASCO for 2 trienniums covering the period 1st of January 2013 to the 31st of December 2018. The collective bargaining agreement was signed by both parties on Friday in the presence of the Labour Commissioner. Negotiations were deadlocked and the collective bargaining agreement remained unsigned due in part to concerns raised by CSA about inequity between their agreement and the agreement made with other bargaining units within the company. These disparities were addressed for the most part and paved the way for a reasonable compromise between the parties. Members of the bargaining unit represented by the CSA have been paid an increase totaling 15.2%. In addition, WASCO agreed to pay a total sum of $800,000 to members of the bargaining unit. In other news, pathologist Dr. Stephen King is in full support and very optimistic about the recent cabinet meeting to discuss the review of the Misuse of Drugs Act that criminalizes the possession and use of cannabis. Dr. King says despite his support for decriminalization, he is not doe-eyed on the issue and is appreciative of the public health concerns. But he says these need to be addressed in a logical way that does not discount the positives of cannabis, both medicinal and economic.
The thing about cannabis is that the whole world is moving towards a change regime with regards to cannabis. So St. Lucia, we must change. It's interesting, I was this weekend out in St. Vincent, and St. Vincent is already moving to regularize sacramental and medicinal cannabis and the growing of cannabis for those areas, right? So I think it's here, it's something we have to deal with. We need to understand what are the benefits of cannabis and what are the harms of cannabis. Right? And we need to put a regulatory regime in place that protects people from the harms and maximizes the benefits.
Dr. King argues that criminalizing cannabis and the global war on drugs has not deterred the use of these drugs, but rather has successfully created a major black market where the state does not benefit directly. Decriminalization and legalization, he says, gives the state control.
The current law doesn't stop them. The current law doesn't create revenues to educate. It doesn't create revenues for employment or any such thing. Now, a new regime, a different regime, in fact, the current regime just corrupts. It corrupts the system. It doesn't protect the young people. In fact, it's harmful for young people because what will happen? A school will find a young person with cannabis, and what will happen to that young person? Who knows? The police may be called. That person may find themselves in conflict with the law, etc., etc., etc. Worse again, because if you're going to take a young person who's using cannabis because they're finding that's what they have to use to cope, or what they feel they must use to cope, and you're going to throw them into borderline? Now, does that make sense? Apart from which, this is a health problem. This is not a criminal problem. We are making it a criminal problem.
In other news, the island's Prime Minister has promised to deliver tangible results to the people of St. Lucia. As part of a presentation to the business community, Shastny updated the Chamber on a number of proposed and current development projects for St. Lucia. Among the many projects were the construction of the Fairmont Hotel in Choiseul, new tourism projects for the Shock area, and of course the DSH project, which will see its horse racing track completed in time for the island's 40th independence anniversary.
The Sabasha project, as you know, in Choiseul, which is going to be the Fairmont. The project really had grown immensely and also grown immensely in cost. And the developers decided to try to scale down on the project, but also to be able to purchase more land and to increase the real estate component to that project. So we're hoping that the new drawings will be completed and that we're hoping to get it started by March of next year. I should say that the Marriott Courtyard is looking to commence construction by February of next year. And the Hyatt has indicated they're looking at, is it the second half or the end of the first half of the year? In the second half of 2019.
The Prime Minister also spoke on critical infrastructural projects to be undertaken, including the redevelopment of Uonora International Airport.
That we have come to an agreement with the Taiwanese government, who've agreed to lend us $100 million US to be able to do that project. That money is being paid for by the airport tax that will be assigned to them, and that we are going to be using a Taiwanese construction company called OECC.
The government of St. Lucia has embarked on a strategic plan to improve effectiveness and efficiency when it comes to the implementation and delivery on key projects in St. Lucia. Through the Ministry of Economic Development, the government is developing the Medium-Term Development Strategy 2019 to 2022 through the Social and Economic Labs. Minister for Economic Development Guy Joseph at Monday's Cabinet press briefing explained that the aim of the labs is to achieve an inclusive and sustainable St. Lucia by 2022. The minister explained that the project plan has been approved by the Cabinet of Ministers, and the process starts with focus group discussions from the 20th to the 30th of November at the Royalton Resort and Spa. The aim of the groups is to assess the feasibility of various projects or game changers, identify key enablers, and prioritize a list of projects in each area. This exercise will be followed by the labs phase from the 3rd to the 12th of December at the same venue. The labs will culminate with a gallery walk on the 12th of December to showcase the recommendations, projects, initiatives, and budgets. You're watching the Hot 7 Nightly News. Sports News with Tennyson Glasgow is up next.